Lewis Hamilton is back in the spotlight, not because of his on-track performance, but because of a surprising statement that exposed an internal conflict within Ferrari. Amidst mounting pressure and disappointing results, Hamilton delivered a scathing message shortly after Frédéric Vasseur reportedly lost his way and gave up on Red Bull's pursuit of dominance. Could this conflict jeopardize Ferrari's chances of winning the world title with Hamilton? Let's discuss it. When the checkered flag waved and the media spotlight turned to Nico Hülkenberg's impressive podium finish for Sauber, many thought that British GP drama was over. However, in the cold, formal press conference room, Frédéric Vasseur, Ferrari team principal, dropped the night's deadliest bombshell, not with anger and not with an aggressive statement. Rather, he delivered a resignation. Wrapped in reality, even if we win all the remaining races, we still might not be world champions. To the public, it sounded like an honest statement. To Lewis Hamilton, though, it was a betrayal of his fighting spirit. He wouldn't leave Mercedes, where he won 7 world titles, to join a team that had given up by July. He came to Ferrari to change history, and, quietly, behind the hustle and bustle of Silverstone, a cold war within Ferrari began. Hamilton didn't respond emotionally. There were no outbursts of anger or overt sarcasm, which usually characterize paddock conflicts. But it was precisely in that calmness that his strength lay. As always, when Lewis Hamilton spoke in his calm, measured voice, the world should be wary. Some elements of this car should not make it into next year's model. The sentence sounded technical and almost sterile, but behind those simple words lurked a warning that resonated loudly within the Ferrari team. This was more than just a critique of the SF225's design philosophy. It was the simmering dissatisfaction of a 7-time world champion cloaked in calmness. Hamilton was sending a signal. He was no longer just a driver who wanted a fast car. He was a leader of change. He was beginning to take on the role of a leader of change. He demanded comprehensive improvements, not just patchwork. Even more surprising, that wasn't the only signal. Not all radio communications were shown to the public in official Formula One broadcasts. Many crucial moments were filtered, hidden, or kept solely for internal team consumption. But this time, those who heard it immediately knew something significant was happening. Right after exiting turn 13, Lewis Hamilton said something that conveyed more than just a technical issue. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't panicked. Rather, it was a flat, cold voice full of suppressed emotion. This rear is not normal. I told you yesterday that it's not reacting the same. There was no response from the pit wall. Silence. A piercing silence. Behind that sentence lurked a deeper context. Since Friday's practice session, Hamilton had been warning that something was wrong with the rear of his car. He requested a change to the rear suspension setup, believing it was vital to performance. But the team refused. They chose to stick with their technical decision. In the middle of his home race at Silverstone, in front of tens of thousands of fans waving British flags, Hamilton was trapped in a car he had never truly mastered. This same car had caused him to stumble in Austria, and now it was coming back to haunt him. In the world of Formula One, silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a language. It's the language of unspoken conflict and unresolved tension. When a team fails to respond to its drivers' warnings, it's not just a technical oversight, it's a symbol of a festering crisis of confidence. For more than a decade, Peter Bonington, also known as Bono, had been Lewis Hamilton's most trusted voice. Now, however, at Ferrari, that voice has been replaced by Riccardo Adami, who is better known as Vettel and Sainz's technical engineer. The problem? Adami's absence, not emotionally and not strategically. At Silverstone, he offered no advice. There was no pushback on strategy. When Hamilton complained about the car, there was no response on the radio. For a driver like Hamilton, who thrives on mutual trust, Adami's absence was painful. During an internal briefing, Hamilton bypassed Adami and spoke directly to technical director Vasseur. It wasn't a coincidence, but a strong signal. I no longer trust this channel of communication. While the public debated setup and tire strategy, Hamilton moved into a deeper, more political, and more dangerous area. He began building a new power structure within Ferrari, not through open conflict, but through networks, influence, and loyalty. This coup wasn't about position, but about who had a voice that was heard. One of the key figures in this quiet movement was Matteo Tognanelli, Ferrari's head of track performance. On paper, Tognanelli wasn't the technical director, the team principal, or a key figure in press conferences. However, he possessed something Hamilton desperately needed: a listening ear and the courage to act. At the Austrian Grand Prix, while most of the team dismissed Hamilton's complaints about the SF26's rear-end instability, Tognanelli stood by him. He agreed with Hamilton's analysis that changes to the rear suspension geometry were necessary. Fred Vasseur and Riccardo Adami initially rejected this idea outright. However, after the Silverstone Grand Prix, something interesting happened. Without a major announcement or special media briefing, a revision was suddenly made and described as a minor adjustment for tire degradation. But those in the know at Ferrari understood exactly what it meant. The day after the British Grand Prix, Hamilton didn't fly straight to Hungary. He stayed in Maranello not to recover. He stayed to confront the SF26 design team directly. There was no PR, no manager, and no Leclerc, just him and the engineers. This car doesn't need evolution. It needs a reset. That statement leaked to the public. It shook Ferrari's internal structure. Hamilton didn't just bring opinions. He brought data. He presented graphs and telemetry comparisons showing transient grip imbalances under DRS activation. He didn't ask. He demanded. In Hungary, Ferrari officially tested the new setup that Hamilton had requested. It included a more stable rear suspension, revised geometry, and smoother throttle mapping. In FP1, the telemetry showed astonishing results. The car, it was more docile, quicker out of corners, and more consistent on long runs. Hamilton simply said, "This is the direction. Log it." There were no celebrations or shouting, but all the engineers knew this wasn't an experiment. It was proof of concept. Ferrari was now facing an internal split that could no longer be hidden. Conservative engineers insisted on maintaining the original SF26 blueprint, a classic approach relying on simulations and rigorous technical calculations. On the other hand, a new wave was emerging, a progressive group inspired by Lewis Hamilton's philosophy. This group was more open to real-time, data-driven approaches, flexible decision-making, and most controversially using the driver's intuition as the primary basis for development. The turning point came in Hungary. After the race, Hamilton walked straight toward Riccardo Adami, then abruptly turned toward Diego Tognanelli, Ferrari's technical chief. He didn't even greet Adami. This gesture may have seemed trivial, but to the public of Formula One, it held significant meaning. For the first time since the Schumacher era, Ferrari had a driver who was fast on the track and beginning to take over the team's technical direction. A quiet revolution was beginning in Maranello. Vasseur was at a crossroads. If he maintained the status quo, Ferrari might fail again in 2025. However, if he allowed Hamilton to shape the team according to his vision, the Scuderia could return to its golden era, albeit with the risk of internal conflict. The question now was whether Lewis Hamilton had really initiated a quiet coup within Ferrari. Leave your thoughts below